Hey, everybody, this is Jonah Lupton, your host of the Startup Sense podcast. Thanks for listening today. Once again, we got a great episode, so stick with us till the end. Usually goes about 35, 40 minutes. On the phone, I have Eric Santos. He is the co-founder of a company called Benchmark Intelligence, based out in California. They've raised about $570,000, gone through a couple accelerators, and we're going to talk about all that in a second. But Eric, how are you today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for joining us. Happy New Year. So before we talk about Benchmark Intelligence, your new startup, tell us about yourself.
All right. So I'm Eric Santos. I am 27 years old, California native. Knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur my whole life. My dad was an entrepreneur in his own right, did some IT consulting by himself, he was self-employed as a consultant. As a child, knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Didn't really know exactly what that meant. I just knew that I wanted to control my own destiny. Went to college for entrepreneurship. I was actually the first in my family to go to college, let alone graduate. Studied entrepreneurship there. Started my first company my senior year, which I raised some money for. It was a tech startup as well. After that eventually failed, I got a job at a market research software company called Decipher, which was later acquired by Focus Vision. There we worked with half of the Fortune 500 in collecting customer data. They collect over 1 billion data points a year, I believe, and that's from 55 million surveys. And there I worked with Salesforce, LinkedIn, eBay, PayPal, helped them run NPS studies and other consumer insight studies. And from there, that's where I met my current co-founders who I started Benchmark Intelligence with.
Cool. So what does Benchmark do?
Benchmark helps brick and mortar chains, whether it's retail or restaurants, measure and improve the customer experience of individual locations. The way we do this is by getting rid of those ugly surveys you may see printed out on the back of receipts at places like Jack in the Box or Best Buy that ask customers to go onto a website and waste 10 to 15 minutes of their day taking a survey. We found a way to collect feedback through text messaging. So imagine with the 100 location chain, we provide them with 100 unique phone numbers that could be displayed on signage inside the stores. From there, customers will see this and text in about their location, say something about service was great, food was bad, and so on. Then we use IBM Watson's cognitive computing technology to analyze what are the trending keywords that this customer is talking about so that you can analyze customer themes at a location level. So understand that this location in Boston is doing bad because it has soggy fries and a cashier with a bad attitude, or this location in New York is doing well because employee sentiment is great.
Cool. Are you able to mention some of the clients that you're already working with?
Yeah, so a lot of the chains that we work with are regional based here in Central California. That includes Deli Delicious, Me and Ed's. One of our larger clients, we work with Procter & Gamble, but specifically one of their retail chains. So many people don't know Procter & Gamble, which is, I believe, a Fortune 25 company, has a number of retail chains. So they take their consumer good products such as Tide and build it into a chain such as Tide Dry Cleaners, which is a current customer of ours.
I had no idea. I'm very familiar with Procter & Gamble. They have probably 15 or 20 different products that all do more than $1 billion a year in revenue. I mean, they're a behemoth, but I had no idea that they were in the retail business themselves.
Yeah, they also have Mr. Clean Car Wash, and then they own the pretty big chain, The Art of Shaving.
That's crazy. Wow. Okay. And how did you guys get hooked up with Procter & Gamble? How did you get them as a client?
Yeah, so we went through the accelerator, the Brandery, based in Cincinnati, Ohio, and they were one of the main reasons that we went there. We went through an accelerator earlier called Boomtown, based out of Boulder, Colorado. And while we were in Boomtown, which was our first accelerator that we quit our jobs for, the Brandery reached out to us, asking if, we'd be interested in joining their accelerator. We were, I wouldn't say skeptical at first, but we just started our first accelerator. So we didn't know if a second accelerator would be necessary. And towards the end, they really seemed like a good program and we were pretty sure on joining it. But the thing that really sold it for us was that one of the head people of innovations at Procter & Gamble actually reached out to us and let them know that they had a fellowship with the Brandery that we were considered for, but just missed it. But they said that if we came to Cincinnati for the brandery, that they would be more than happy to mentor us and possibly work on a pilot with us. And that's exactly what happened. The early days, it was really based around mentorship. And then later on, we were able to kind of secure this the pilot and work with them as we are doing right now.
Awesome. So you guys have about 25 clients, right?
Yeah, or ranging in size from when I use the word chain, I mean I use that loosely. It could be a 5-unit tea shop in Colorado, up to some pilots of some companies that I can't name, but are chains with thousands of locations. But our pilots are with a subset of those locations.
Right. Okay.
Really kind of proof of concept.
Okay, makes sense. With regards to your service being text message based versus the old way of doing it, where they print out a link on a receipt or on the back, and they tell maybe the cashier tells you to go to the link and do the survey. Either way, I've gotten those thousands of times. I've never done a single survey. So how effective is the old way of doing it versus your way of doing it?
Yeah. So the old way it really doesn't work in brick and mortar. So when I worked in market research, the biggest thing you always combat against is response rates, whether it's an email list or you're paying for a panel. How do you get as many customers to take the survey for as affordable as possible? And it's one thing when you're working with an e-commerce site and you're trying to get customers to click a link inside an email. It's another thing when you're trying to get customers who are very busy, who are running in and outside of restaurants and retail shops, to see a link printed out on a receipt and go to their desktop or type that long link into their smartphone and then take 10 to 15 minutes to take a survey. So it just really doesn't work in brick and mortar. And that's something that we recognize. So, creating the text messages, when you're a startup, you have a lot of assumptions. Our startup is based on this assumption. If we provided customers a channel to text in, will they? And then we were able to validate that. So, we see with most of our customers, compared to their surveys that they're using or website forms, that they're getting 10x more data each month from customers. And it's the important data. It's the data that's relevant around their experience. Because customers, it's an open-ended comment. Customers are only going to talk about the variables that were related to their experience.
So you used a really important word, validate. I think that's one mistake that entrepreneurs don't make early on, is they don't really validate their idea. They think it's a good idea. Their co-founders think it's a good idea. But until they go out in the real world and ask some people, or build a prototype and get feedback, they don't really know. So how did you guys go about validating your idea in the beginning?
Yeah, I have to give a big thanks to Boomtown, our first accelerator, for that one. When we came in there, it was really idea of napkin. We sort of did some validation ourselves. We built an early prototype. We got one user to use it for free, but that wasn't saying too much. Boomtown accepted us because they really liked the pain point they were going after, and they also liked our team. That they liked that we all worked together for 4 years, that we worked at a market research software company. So when we went in there, and a lot of their selection is based on team, because a lot of the companies that are in there are super early. So the first 2 or 3 weeks, I believe, is strictly customer development. They don't allow any of the technical founders to write any code while they're
Wow.
Yeah, until you talk to, I think it was like 10 customers a week, or 10 potential customers a week. Go through these interviews, document them, ask them specific questions about pain points, and then really kind of figure out what you need to build an MVP. And I'm thankful that we had them do that for us, because that allowed us to talk to a lot of people early on and really identify the pain points of restaurants and retail chains. And yeah, that's kind of how we validated everything that we do since then. Whether it's products or stuff that we bring out, we validate it by asking our current customers if this is something that would be useful, or future ones that we need to close. So, validating assumptions is something that's really big within our organization, and we really understand the dangerousness of assumptions.
So did you guys, you were in Boulder, Colorado at the time. Did you just kind of walk around Boulder, walk into some pizza shops, walk into some retail stores, and just start firing off questions?
We got lucky early on. One of our advisors is Aaron Kennedy, the founder of Noodles and Company, which is about 500 locations, I believe, publicly traded chain. We saw that he was on the mentor list when we got accepted. So right before we got there, I think it was even the first day, we emailed him and asked if we can meet, that we're working in the restaurant space. We'd love to talk to him. And, he's a very busy guy. So he likes to multitask in that he goes for a jog every morning, and a hike, I would say. And he only talks to entrepreneurs if, they'll go on a hike with him. The one caveat this was February 19th, 2015, and it was snowing, and it was about 5 degrees. And understand that I'm from California, specifically Central California, where the climate is pretty warm. And I think I've seen snow 5 times in my life up until the point where I moved to Colorado. That's me going to the Sequoias or Yosemite specifically to seek snow. Snow never came to me. So, this is the second day that we're in Colorado. We drove there. My car actually slid off the highway the first day because, I have a Mustang with low pro tires, a California boy. So when we get there, second day, we go on a hike with him, 7 degrees. And also another thing is the elevation is super high. So our lungs aren't quite acclimated. So the whole time he's asking us questions, our co-founders are like, we're kind of passing out the baton to who answers them because, none of us can really breathe at the moment. But, after we talked to him, he was a great guy. He became one of our advisors, and he really opened some doors for us in terms of local Colorado chains. He sits on the board of directors at some, just knows people in the industry. So made a lot of introductions for us early on just to start talking to people, that's what happened.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of the Lupton Group and host of the Startup Sense podcast. Are you struggling to find the right tech team to build your company's website or mobile app? Maybe you've developed a product but need help with your go-to-market strategy, including branding and marketing. Well, stop worrying, because my team at the Lupton Group can assist you with all of those needs. We specialize in helping entrepreneurs and startups of all sizes launch and grow their businesses. For a free consultation, you can email me at jonahlupton@gmail.com or visit our website at luptongroup.co. Yeah, I've actually never even heard of Noodles and Company. While you were talking, I Googled it, and they're all over the place. I typed in, went to locations and typed in Boston, and they have like 15 locations throughout Massachusetts and Connecticut and New Hampshire. So definitely bigger than I thought, and it looks like a pretty cool place. Now, in terms of getting deployed, doing a regional pilot program with a company like that, or any of your other clients, what is the sales process? I mean, you guys obviously, they've probably never heard of Benchmark, so you have to reach out to them, and how hard do you have to twist their arm to get them to do a pilot program?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with really large companies, at the moment, I would say for the small to medium, 10 to 100 locations, we can reach them through, marketing, a lot of outbound, a lot of sales. That's where we're getting a hold of them. And, we have some success there. With really large corporations, it's really about relationships. So, it's our accelerators, it's the innovation programs like Plug and Play, which we're part of. So, once we get to the correct person or an innovations manager, a lot of the larger companies, they've kind of already have processes set up in place to run pilots. And when it's a brick and mortar chain, it usually goes by a store base. So, we meet with them, kind of articulate the value that we provide, and then try to, convince a pilot to come to fruition. Whether most of the time it's around a 20 to 50 location pilot, even if they're a company with thousands of locations, that's really kind of where they feel comfortable with and where we aim for. It's enough locations that you can start validating that there is, that this can provide some real value, but it's not a lot where that's going to take a ton of resources on their end or, necessarily a lot of money for paying for it. It's about trying to get those pilots, prove that you can provide value and with a subset of locations, and then hopefully, move on from there.
So what kind of data and analytics are they getting, and then how do they access that information?
Mm-hmm. So with the Benchmark dashboard, which they have, 24/7 access to, it's 2 layered. They have the customer service side, which they can use the text messaging to have 2-way conversations with customers. So as soon as a customer sends in a text, IBM Watson will identify if that text is positive, negative, or neutral, and it'll send that customer an automated response. So if it's positive, it'll say, "Thank you very much. Please share this experience online, Facebook link." If it's negative, "Sorry to hear about that. You'll hear from someone in 24 hours. And from there, our customer can get back to their customer and have conversations with them through text messaging. So actually have real-time 2-way conversations through SMS, alleviate any issues, send them coupons if they have to and whatnot. And then you have kind of the analytics end of the dashboard, which is really using Watson to understand what are the variables that impact a location's performance, whether, it's food, service, cleanliness, and so on. And then identify what are the trending keywords that your customers are talking about. If it's an employee's name, if it's a certain product, have the ability to search for products or employees' names or other variables using the platform. So, it's really meant for someone at a high level to drill down all the way to a location level to understand what is the customer experience, but then also, cluster if you need to, such as look at a region, look at a state, and so on.
I'm running into this problem with one of my companies, SoundGuard, and the hotels deal with noise complaints or unhappy guests. But if there's no channel for those guests to express their, unhappiness, they just don't return. And it's probably very similar in the retail and restaurant business. If there's no good customer feedback channel, those customers, if they can't kind of voice their, concerns, they just don't return to that restaurant. And then that's a lost customer for a long time. Is there any, financials out there or data that shows how much money is lost in the restaurant industry by unhappy customers?
Yeah, there actually is. There was a study done by Harvard, and keep in mind, this is mostly for smaller business. This number that they did is not going to be necessarily truly applicable to large chains, because chains is at a really large size, it's a little different because, it's more of a consistent experience. Right. But in smaller ones, I believe like a half star negative increase or decrease on Yelp can affect up to 4% revenue annually. There's a study. Look up Harvard Yelp study. My numbers may be slightly off, but I'm pretty sure it's almost those exact numbers. That 4%. Restaurants specifically, that's a game of margins. The food.
Right. Oh yeah, and they already have thin margins to begin with.
Yeah. So those, the percent differential makes a big impact, and that's specific on restaurants. And that's a study with smaller restaurant, still chains, but smaller, multiple locations, probably 10 locations and so on. But that was a study done by Harvard. And that's just showing like the impact since social media has created that it can have on, businesses. And social media was big in allowing businesses to hear from more customers compared to the traditional methods, before with the surveys and whatnot. But still, social media is not going to cover everything because not every customer wants their comment publicly facing. So we're the first one that's going to provide them with the easiest channel possible, which is SMS, because sending a text is a lot easier than logging into an app, then leaving a star review, then writing the actual message. And, it doesn't allow the customer to have their comment be publicly facing. So that's what Benchmark really allows them to do.
I feel like some people, they genuinely want to help the business or restaurant improve themselves, but they're not looking right. They don't want to go onto Yelp or Facebook and just bash them. They want to give honest, constructive criticism and help them do a better job. Maybe they need to train their employees better. Maybe they need a better array of products or menu. Whatever it might be. So no, I totally get the privacy aspect of it. Have you guys found so far that customers are more likely to text in their feedback if they have a great experience or a bad experience?
It is skewed more towards negative, but you still get a good mixture of positive and neutral. I would say on average, it's probably something along the lines of 60% negative, probably like a 5% neutral, and then 35% positive. Kind of just exactly like you said, customers want to give their experience back, feedback on it. So what this allows is really to hear from more middle of the road experiences. You're not going to always have these polarizing experiences of really great and really bad because, those customers will go out of their way. But, you just take 15 seconds out of your day for your voice to be heard, you're more than likely to do so. So that's where, Benchmark allows you to not always have the opposite end of the spectrum, but kind of that, well-balanced ratio of positive and negative and neutral.
Do any of these chains find a way to incentivize or, thank these customers that are taking time to give feedback? Are there any rewards or perks attached to, texting the businesses?
Actually, no. Currently, none of our customers are offering incentives, and that's pretty remarkable given how many customers they're hearing from. So just showing that customers will go out of their way to leave feedback, and we're getting 10x better than some methods that are giving you, a coupon for 2 free tacos or 10% off your next visit. So all our customers, it's just, customers are opting in on their own well-being. And sometimes if they have a bad experience, they may send a coupon, and that's a little different, but customers are not being incentivized currently to send in text messages.
And so what do you guys charge for your service? What's the pricing schedule?
Yeah. So per location per month, it ranges on vertical, and number of locations, but I mean, really ranging from the bottom end of, $40 per location per month, all the way up to $100 per location per month. And again, that depends on vertical because, some places are bigger than others, so therefore they'll receive more text. And then the number of locations. If you have a number of locations, then you got, you get a volume discount and more buying power. So that's kind of how the pricing is.
Even at $100 a month, I mean, that is just a tiny fraction of what, negative experiences could be doing to a restaurant if the restaurant doesn't know about it and doesn't have a chance to fix it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's, for the smaller businesses, even if you're a gentleman that owns 3 locations, you pay $300 a month. That's your insurance plan against customer negative reviews and that impacting your revenue performance.
Cool. How fast are you guys growing right now? Like how many new clients are you trying to add on a weekly or monthly basis?
Yeah. So, we started 2015 was when we quit our jobs to start Benchmark. And that was really about kind of building the product and then really validating. And we had a couple of free users. We started generating revenue the beginning of last year and, got some growth. Then we raised $500,000 back in the middle of the summer. And then that was kind of, a little bit of flat area because, you're bringing on full-time employees and kind of training them. And I'm the only non-technical CEO, the only non-technical co-founder. So my 2 co-founders are both technical. So a lot of me who was doing the selling had to take a break for a while to, kind of train and get my employees ready. But 2017 is going to be, a big year for us. Really, we're also, the last year has been good for identifying our product market fit because, we focused on really small chains in the beginning because, you have the assumption that if it's a small chain that the sales cycle is a lot easier, which is so sometimes, but sometimes small businesses are not always, open to new technology. So really what we see our place is in the middle market to large enterprise chains. And, those are the ones that we're working with. And, in 2017, we hope to add, over 1,000 locations into the platform, paid locations, whether that's represented with 2 customers or a bunch of smaller ones. 2017 will be, a big year for us.
So if you guys add 1,000 locations in 2017 and on average, call it, you said somewhere between $1,500 and $100 per month. So, average is 75,000. So you guys want to add basically $75,000 of revenue per month.
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal. Yeah. Get there by the end of the month. With SaaS, everything is in monthly recurring. So, once you get a customer, whether it's 12 months, 6 months, every customer that we got, that just starts adding to our MRR. So yeah, that's the goal.
You'd definitely be on like a 7-figure ARR by the end of the year.
Yeah, definitely. We consider ourselves right now pre-seed, our 500,000. We're raising a full seed, somewhere in the beginning of this year. Because obviously when you raise a Series A, the expectations are different, which we need to get to kind of, the numbers that you already articulated to get to kind of that Series A. So, right now is, we're already at the seed level and the 500,000, depending on where you are, could be considered seed. But, looking for, a full seed round sometime, this year, actually now that it's 2017, I forgot. But yeah, and then use that to really, fuel growth, get to that big ARR number. And then, and even if, it grows past that, maybe we don't need the Series A, maybe we just keep going. But, at least try to get to the place where, that the ball's in our court for those decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, maybe you guys end up realizing that you're, you can go cash flow positive and just continue to fund the growth yourselves. In terms of hiring, how big is the team right now?
The team right now is 5 people.
So you guys are still pretty lean.
Yeah, we're still pretty lean. Yeah.
It's So you guys are like doing everything still, right? You're all still wearing all the hats.
Yeah, I'm still wearing a lot of them. We have 3 founders, two full-time employees. We there have been some team changes. Our team was a little larger sometime during this year, but we had to make cutbacks and make decisions after raising the funding and kind of really learning what our burn is and all that good stuff. But yeah, after that, kind of we set more realistic expectations and now keep the team lean, and everyone's doing what they need to do. But yeah, hope that head count will be a lot larger by this time next year.
Your first time, your first full hire, was it a technical person or a sales marketing person?
Technical.
Okay. What about the second person?
So the first 2, they came in a duo. So we had the co-working space that we work out of. They have a concept, they're co-working / educational school for coding. So we were really privileged to work with a lady named Raquel and a gentleman named Adam, who came to the program after about 6 months of training, and then kind of did an internship with us. And then, Raquel is who's with us now. So she's full time. So, she came to us with, very little coding background. Now she's developing enterprise software. She's pretty young. She's 22, I believe. She was working at Ross 2 years ago, didn't go to college, decided to, take a whim, taking this coding instructional school. And then, now she's writing code that is being used by Procter & Gamble, at the retail chains.
Sweet. What other metrics do you look at on a, weekly basis to kind of identify or determine the health of the company and whether you guys are growing, on target to hit your goals?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, sales obviously is a big one. I mean, the financial metrics, I mean, obviously looking at burn all the time and then growth, but other metrics, I mean, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say I'd use the word metrics loosely, but I mean, the qualitative stuff, I mean, just employee happiness. I mean, as, small team, making sure that everyone is on track and that, the vision is still aligned and everyone's aligned with it. But, more at the monthly basis is the bigger picture ones, number of locations that we have, revenue, what's in the pipeline, opportunities and all that good stuff.
What about like marketing? Are you guys doing any marketing spend right now?
So we're just getting our feet wet in marketing spend. When we started, we figured we're going to put all of our effort into outbound and just sales. And that has proven well, but we've also seen that, cold reach out is not going as well as we initially thought. So we figured, marketing is actually going to need to be a part of our strategy. We know it would always become it just earlier than you expected. So kind of finally doing our first ad spend the last, I think we started probably in December or November, working on inbound now, having different landing pages, trying to get people to take the demo versus us always reaching out. And really the next round we do will be heavily focused around marketing so that, for us salespeople, we have leads, leads to work versus always trying to have to fight for them.
Which service or platform are you guys using to kind of optimize landing pages and build sales funnels and all that good stuff?
Yeah. So let me try to think of what our sales stack is. So with our CRM, we use close.io, which is, really good. You have the calling ability, all tracked. That helps us save a lot of time using pretty much all our outbound in one place. We use for outbound, we use a tool called Leadfinch, which allows us to, it's a little tool based out of the UK that allows us to pull email addresses from really anybody's LinkedIn profile, or if we just get their first and last name and a URL. It's not always 100% accurate, but if we need to find out who's the VP of operations at X chain, we'll find their name and then we can kind of input that information in. And most of the time we'll get an email.
Oh, sweet. I use hunter.io for that.
Oh, hunter.io.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Same thing, right? I mean, you just type in a URL and it gives you like, all the email addresses that they have in the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we use I used before also GrowBots, which is kind of it's two-phase tool where it's a lead list tool, obviously, where you can go by an industry and look for people, but also does kind of the email automation like an SDR for you. So you choose a list from their site, 100 people, business owners, small to medium business owners, and then it sends out the emails for you, and then kind of does the follow-ups so that when the customer finally replies, it just added to your inbox and then you can get back to them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm actually signing up for a demo as we speak. That's a pretty cool service.
Yeah. We used HubSpot for a while because we had a really good discount from the accelerators. But as that kind of ended, again, this was about the whole inbound thing. We weren't doing a lot of inbound. So it just didn't, make a lot of sense financially to, do that. Marketing automation is something that we definitely want to get back into. A lot of it's sale automation we're doing right now. So our landing pages right now, whether it's our current one or these special ones that we're building, my chief product officer kind of builds them from static pages. So it's not actually any tools being used for that. But we'll plan on expanding our marketing stack a lot more the beginning of this year.
Cool. What have you learned over the last year, that's made you a better CEO?
I've learned a lot. Patience is a big one. Beginning of the year was pretty hard. About this time last year, just, we finished 2 accelerators. We hadn't had any funding yet. You kind of go into the accelerator with this assumption that like on demo day, people write you $1 million checks. And it's just not that. It takes a while to, build the company. So by this time last year, we went through 2 accelerators. I was so focused on raising funding, given, that I'm the only non-technical founder, like the only one selling or trying to raise funding. And then, we were getting no's, and it was like, we had no customers. And it was like, man, I'm just tired of hearing no's. I'm just going to focus on selling. Like, this is why you build a company in the first place. I think I just got too much into like the whole fundraising machine. And then, we just started getting customers, and we, started generating revenue, and that makes it a lot easier to raise funding. And then we met our investors, and that kind of pulled into play. But, there's so many times where, as the only non-technical founder, your technical founders look at you, and, it sucks because once the product's already built, it almost feels like, there's nothing that they can do. They can always optimize it. We keep adding new features, but, it's kind of out of their control at that point. And then it's all on the CEO's shoulder. So, I just learned that stuff comes with patience. Everything took twice as long as we thought it would. And
right.
So we still have a lot of goals we wanted to hit last year that we're still on target to hit, but it just really, have patience, and things will screw up, and you just gotta, keep finding a way. Like, again, earlier on, we were really focused on small businesses. We thought we just keep signing up these 2-3 unit ones, like every day those will add up in MRR. But it was just, the product wasn't really fit around them. And then those ones would churn out. Like, all our large customers that, 50 locations, that's a medium-sized business. This is really engraved into their operation. Benchmark goes down, they freak out. Like, this is engraved into like, their daily operations. So that's what we found is, really trying to find a product market fit. And then, I would say those are big lessons I learned.
Cool. Yeah. I assume the general managers at these restaurants like it, right? Because it allows them to get kind of real-time feedback from the people that are spending money in their establishments.
Yeah, definitely. There was one time, it also kind of depends on the corporation, because some, the chain, they will, I wouldn't say hide the data, but it all goes to the back office. And other ones, they let the general managers be part of the process, so actually get back to the customers. So it really just depends on that. And one time I went to meet a district managers meeting where I met with the COO, and all the district managers were in the room. And then I think they kind of like hated me at first, because they're like, oh, this is the guy that, gives our CEO all the negative feedback from customers. So, we were kind of like, this tattletale software solution, because they were never really getting negative reviews at their location level until Benchmark. So, but yeah, then when I told them that their locations are now getting 50% less negative text, they got really excited. So, they like that if they have a bad experience or they mess up as a general manager, that's not necessarily online and they don't have to pay for it.
Awesome. What's the best piece of advice you got from one of your investors? Tell us who your investor is, because it's not like a name that's, some of us don't know the name.
Yeah, so it's a newer venture capital firm based here out of Central California. It's called San Joaquin Capital. And, Yeah, one of the best pieces of advice I got was, it was right when we were finishing all the, I think we just signed the term sheet. We're like finishing all the other stuff that's done in a deal. I go to his office, VC, but he also runs a software company too. Just tell him, he's a CEO. So just kind of talking about CEO woes, how anxious I am, and, just like the nervousness of it. And,
is his software company also in a, SaaS subscription model?
Yeah. Okay. The software company is called Aplos. Okay. So it's like QuickBooks, but for nonprofits. They've been killing it. They're one of the leaders in the market. But, talk to him about like my plan, what I want to do with the money in the beginning. And then he's just like, that's great. He's just, be ready. A lot of the stuff that you want to do is going to go wrong. Like, it's not going to go the way you think it is. And just make sure that, you have the fortitude just to keep going and find another way. I told him like 5 things I plan on doing. And actually, I would say the majority of them, did go wrong. And that's, I said just earlier about one of the lessons I learned in 2016, that was really based around him, is, focusing on really small businesses at first, work our way up to medium to enterprise, all this stuff. And then I keep remembering that conversation I had with him where like, you think you're going to know what you need to do. Stuff's going to go wrong. Just make sure you pick yourself up and you go another direction. You're going to you have to figure it out no matter what. And that's exactly what I'm doing every day. I mean, I feel like I'm playing a video game. I got to a level I've never been before, and I'm figuring out as I go. Probably not the best thing to say as a CEO of a startup, but
at least you're honest, right? I mean, I think there is no training to be an entrepreneur, really. I mean, the only way to learn how to do it is just to do it.
Exactly.
And to get out there, make mistakes, and talk to people, like your investor that have been down that road before, and have some valuable advice for you to try to keep you out of trouble as much as possible. But you're going to get in trouble. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to, have regrets. I mean, I think, I don't know if there's an entrepreneur out there that, hasn't made any major mistakes, in the lifespan of their company. I'm sure even the best have. Bezos and Zuckerberg, and I'm sure they've made plenty of them. They would probably admit it too. What has been kind of the biggest mistake that you've made along the road?
Biggest mistake, I probably just too high expectations right out the gate. One, getting funding, just, not easy into certain, I would say, expenses, or, I wouldn't say it was hiring too fast, but just kind of setting expectations too high, not really having too much of contingency. Could have throttled back towards, the middle of this year on certain things that we did. And then, that's why, I tried to stay lean now, and, make the appropriate decisions when necessary, not always beforehand in expectations of something happening. But, you can't always do that. There's a lot where you're going to have to bet on certain stuff. A lot of companies, they literally bet the business off certain business decisions. So I guess to just be more careful with those and realistic with my expectations.
Yeah. Well said. Just a couple last questions I typically fire off to our guests. If you could be mentored by anyone, who would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. Man, I would have to say Elon Musk. I know it's like not. I probably should say like a SaaS CEO, or a software, Salesforce or something. But just he's an amazing man. He's someone I look up to a lot. And just I just feel like there's so much that I could learn from him. Just even being in the same room with him and just watching, how he interacts with people and how he leads. So I would say Elon Musk.
He's definitely our most popular choice by far, and then followed by probably Zuckerberg and Bezos, tied for second. And then last question here: if you, let's see, what I want to ask you. Okay, favorite book, blog, or TV show?
So I'll go with. So I'm answering all three, or
up to you. I mean, I personally don't read books. I don't have time. So I'm more of a blog guy, and then I have a couple of favorite TV shows. So, answer it however you want. Some people don't have cable, so they don't watch TV, and they just read a ton of books.
Yeah. So actually, both my blog, both my blog and book are from the same person, And that is the book. I'll be honest, I don't read a ton of books. I try to do audiobooks as much as possible. It's a time one that I did read, and it was based from our accelerator told us to read it, and that was Venture Deals, and that just taught me a lot about kind of the and that's by Brad Field and Jason Mendelsohn. Taught me a lot about the venture capital landscape, and it really prepared me with a lot of the stuff that I needed before I went into those conversations, because I read that months before we raised funding. And yeah, I think I learned so much from that book. And that blog, other than the Startup Sense podcast, of course, would be Brad Field's blog. I don't know if if he actually has a name for it. I think it's just Feld, but Brad Feld's blog. I was a big fanboy of his, and even wrote him, tried to meet him on a couple occasions. While I was in Boulder, Colorado. Wasn't able to, but he actually donated 2 books to myself and another co-founder. So I got the book from him. He was in the office. I went to the Foundry Group's office, and then his assistant gave it to me. But yeah, both his book and his blog are pretty awesome. And TV show, I've never actually seen a full season of a television show in my life other than Silicon Valley. Yeah. I just don't. I like movies. I don't know if I don't have patience, but I like watching something and seeing like the climax and the ending and feeling good about myself or bad and moving on. TV shows are maddening because I'll watch it and at the end I'll be on a cliffhanger and I'll need to know what happens next.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah. The only one I've seen up to date is Silicon Valley. Just given the industry that we're in, so that has to be my favorite. And plus, that one's just ridiculously funny. So Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I rarely catch a TV show series on TV because, like you said, I hate waiting a week to get to the next episode. So I typically just wait for it to come out on Netflix, and then I just, watch it in like 2 days. and have to find another show to watch. Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Happy New Year. Sounds like you're up to some exciting things with Benchmark. Excited to see where you guys go from here. Any parting words for us?
No, just upwards and to the right in 2017. And thank you for having me on.
Sweet. And best way to find out more about the company is the website usebenchmark.com. How can they track you down?
They can track me down on I don't have any of my URLs. I think Facebook, I'm at Eric Santos. The Facebook URLs, and at the end is Eric Santos 89. That's the same as me on Instagram. The Eric Santos 89 is my handle. And I believe that's the same for Twitter as well. So Eric Santos 89. If you type that in on any of the social medias, that should lead you to me. And also my email, if anyone has questions at any time, it's Eric, ERIC, at, again, the URL again, which is usebenchmark.com.
Great. Okay. So if any of the audience works for a retail store or restaurant chain, shoot you an email and kind of get the ball rolling, right?
Yeah, definitely. Always love to hear from potential customers. So again, Eric at usebenchmark.com. Thanks.
Sounds good, man. Really appreciate your time. Come back anytime, give us some updates, and work on those milestones and get to that Series A.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good one.
Soon. Later.
Thanks.